Hello, everyone. Welcome in. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I would love to know where you're tuning in from by using the chat. I am in sunny St. Petersburg, Florida. Awesome. Iowa. Awesome. Thanks for being here with us today. Another from Iowa. Welcome. Thank you for being here. We can go ahead and kick things off. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Insure Fitness webinar series. I'm Shannon with IFG, and I'm excited to be your co-host today. If you're new to Insure Fitness Group, we're a leading provider of comprehensive liability insurance for fitness professionals across the United States. Our coverage extends to personal trainers and a wide range of other fitness modalities, but we don't stop at insurance. We also offer exclusive member benefits like discounts on continuing education, other industry related products, opportunities, and more, all available through our member portal. To explore everything we have to offer, visit insurefitness.com. Just a couple quick housekeeping tips. Quick reminder that today's webinar will run for 60 minutes and it is being recorded. The recording will be emailed to everyone within 48 hours. We encourage you to ask questions, so feel free to use the chat or the question feature, and we'll be monitoring both throughout. We'll also reserve the last 10 minutes for a Q&A session. Now let's jump in. The topic of today's webinar is Training for Menopause, Menstrual Math, Ovarian Aging, and Preparing Clients with Confidence. Please join me in welcoming our host, Jennifer Kramer, a multifaceted wellness expert dedicated to helping clients of all ages and abilities unlock their best selves through guidance and accountability. Jennifer holds an MA in health coaching from the University of Maryland School of Integrative Health and is a national board certified health and wellness coach. Her impressive credentials span the entire fitness spectrum, including certifications as an ACE group fitness instructor, ASCM personal trainer, and 200-hour RYT and NITA Pilates instructor. Currently teaching cycling, Pilates, yoga, and HIIT for Plus One, Jennifer's expertise goes far beyond the studio. She has a deep background in coaching clients through metabolism, behavior change, nutrition, sleep, and stress management to help them achieve their ultimate wellness vision. Please welcome Jennifer, and thank you for tuning in to the Insure Fitness webinar series.
Thanks, Shannon. Thank you for that warm welcome. And thanks everybody for joining in person. I have a lot to share, so I'm super excited to get started. You will all get a copy, I believe, of the webinar. And Shannon, let me know if you can't see the PowerPoint here. Let me see here that we just had it, but I could be wrong. Let me see here. Shannon, are we good to go?
Yep,
Can you see it?
looks
Okay,
good.
perfect. That's always the
Yes.
challenge for me. All right, fabulous. So today I'm going to give you some information on menopause. You already heard a background on me, so we can skip this slide. Today, I'd like to share my favorite quote that I start with all my trainings from the martial artist Bruce Lee, which is absorb what is useful today for you, discard what is not, and add what is uniquely your own. Some of this will resonate with you and your clients, and some of it, nope. And then your secret sauce you're going to add to it. Our objectives today is to understand the menstrual cycle and how changes in cycle length, flow, and symptoms reflect ovarian aging and early menopause transition. We'll identify the hormonal tipping point when ovarian aging accelerates and understand how it influences mood, sleep, metabolism, and cycle regularity. And we'll apply lifestyle strategies. So we'll look at nutrition, physical activity, sleep health, stress management to support the menopause transition and beyond. So we have a lot to do in 50 minutes. So let me start by giving you the stages of menopause. So premenopause is that entire reproductive period up to the final menstrual period. The perimenopause is the period prior to the menopause. So menopause is only a 1 day event. This is when you go 12 months without a period. And then day 366 is woohoo, your menopause birthday. And everything after that is considered post menopause to the rest of your life. Now, for those of you like me that don't really remember health class when we learned our menstrual cycle, it's really good to know about it now because there are whispers and signs long before we feel like we're in perimenopause. So, just to briefly go over it, and just so you know, this information is just for your education based on my experience and training. So, not medical advice, so I'll do my best to get through this. So we have 4 cycles to the menstrual cycle. We have menstruation, days like 1 through 5, when we have the bleed. And then we have the follicular phase. So the follicular phase is when estrogen is rising and also follicle stimulating hormone is rising because the body is getting ready to ovulate. So we're getting ready to get those follicles ready so that one of them will ovulate. Then, as estrogen is rising and follicle stimulating continues to rise, it comes to a point where there's a fully developed follicle and then luteinizing hormone is released. This causes ovulation for the egg to be released, and that ruptured follicle then becomes the corpus luteum, or our source of progesterone. So we have our ovulation, everything is great. And then if the egg is not fertilized, then we're going into the luteal phase where the egg either gets fertilized and you have a pregnancy, or the egg does not get fertilized and we eventually shed the lining of the uterus and the whole process starts all over again. We'll see how this affects ovarian aging and the perimenopause. So that's in a perfect world. We have that nice 21 to 35 day cycle. We would have estrogen and progesterone. Everything would be perfect. But come our late 30s and early 40s, we have what's called the tipping point. So, as ovarian, we call it ovarian aging. So, as the eggs are aging, we have fewer healthy follicles. When we have fewer healthy follicles, the brain and the pituitary is trying to increase estrogen, increase your follicle stimulating hormone so that you can ovulate. But with those less healthy follicles, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So the brain keeps pumping out, okay, we need more estrogen, we need more follicle stimulating hormone. And sometimes as we're moving through in our upper 30s and 40s, we might have what's called anovulatory cycles, meaning we don't ovulate. So if we're not ovulating, then we're not producing progesterone because that comes from the rupture of the follicle, becomes that corpus luteum, or our source of progesterone. So then what happens when we don't have our source of progesterone, then you could have irregular cycles. So they could be longer or shorter. You could have heavier or lighter bleeding. And progesterone, as you would learn in the full menopause course, which I'll talk about at the end, progesterone is that stress shield hormone. It is the hormone that helps you sleep, it helps with mood, and progesterone and estrogen work very well together. So when there's no progesterone, you start to see a little bit of that mood swings. You start to see a little bit of the sleep changes. So there's little signs that you're getting way before your body starts screaming at you. According to the SWAN study, perimenopause is defined as when you have a plus or minus 7 day change in the cycle. So if you are still having cycles and you're tracking them, you may start to notice like, oh, wait a minute, this one wasn't, it was longer than it normally is by 7 days or shorter than it normally is by 7 days. And that could give you an indicator that, oh, I'm in perimenopause. Although you can know way earlier than that because your body's giving you these little signs and symptoms by having those anovulatory cycles. So just to give you a hint, if you're really paying attention to your cycle and you start to notice like, wait a minute, like my mood's off a little bit, my cycles are off a little bit, that's kind of a little bit of a clue of what's to come. And you can get ahead of that, which we'll discuss here. So let's look at some lifestyle strategies that we can utilize. The first being nutrition. So I put these in order of what I think is the most important and what when I work with my clients, I find what works best. So the first is to avoid low energy availability. So that means that we're not eating enough calories to sustain our body systems, to sustain the exercise that we're doing. And that would be very common because as we might start to put on some weight in perimenopause, which is not uncommon, it would be a natural response like, whoa, let me just eat less and exercise more. However, that's the worst thing you can do because as your body is fluctuating those hormones and as they're starting to go down, our bodies are very stressed out. So when we're not eating enough, we're just adding more stress to an already stressed out body. And you'll know when you're in low energy availability because you'll feel absolutely exhausted. You'll have hunger and cravings. And if it goes on for too long, you could even have thyroid issues. So making sure that our clients eat enough food. Number two, prioritize protein. That's everywhere. It's in all the social media, all the studies. There's no argument that we need to prioritize protein. Number one, protein is the most satiating nutrient. It shuts off hunger signals in the brain. It helps us with uh, blood sugar response because as we move into perimenopause, we become more insulin resistant. If we're insulin resistant or have prediabetes, it's going to be very hard to lose weight because we're only burning sugar. We're not even getting into fat burning. And we want that flexible metabolism. Number three, focus on nutrient dense whole foods. The more the food doesn't come in a package, the better because you're just getting all those vitamins and minerals. And then number four, eat the rainbow. Every single color in the grocery store offers different benefits: anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, antifungal. So all the colors are necessary. So getting into protein, we want to optimize protein intake. I will not read you these bullet points, but as you can see, protein does quite a bit for us. And that's why it's so important for many things, right? To build muscle, to help with bone. Like I said, it shuts off hunger in the brain, helps with sleep. So very important. So this is the breakdown when it first came out was the basic recommendation for protein was 1 to 1.2 grams per kilogram per day. And for to figure out your kilograms, you just take your weight in pounds divided by 2.2. They realized that is way, way too low. So they came back and gave an optimal range for active women of 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram. Now the research is showing that we need even more protein than that, especially for us probably on this call who enjoy working out and have a pretty active lifestyle. It would be more like 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram. And I find the easiest way to remember this and when I'm working with my clients is to think 1 gram per ideal body weight. So for example, if my ideal body weight was 120, then I'm trying to get my protein to about 120 grams. Now, some people, there may not only be eating 80 grams. Then we just want to get them to slowly eat more protein. It's okay. They don't have to shove 120 grams in all at once. It's a process. And they can't even do it all at once. You would have to do it throughout the day because our body can only process about 25 to 30 grams of protein at a meal. So we want to space that protein out over the day. Leucine is one of our amino acids. It's one that the body can't produce and must be obtained from food. Very good during the menopause transition because it helps with muscle protein synthesis. So the research was showing if you eat high protein that's also high in leucine, they say about 3 to 5 grams of leucine, that will help with muscle protein synthesis or building the muscle. So just a couple of foods that are high in leucine here at the bottom. You might want to prioritize those in your diet. these are just a few, not an exhaustive list, but just a few sources of protein that are on here. Really good with the omega-3s and the fish, because they also have benefits for other menopause symptoms such as joint pain and gut health. So optimizing those as well. My clients always ask me, like, I love to snack. What are some high protein snacks? So I just put in a couple of things, some easy grab and go things that you can take with you that are high protein. So you can move towards that. I always say work towards 100 grams of protein. Like that's what, start there and then you can increase. Now, carbohydrates is not the enemy during the perimenopause transition. Sometimes it gets a bad rap. However, during the menopause transition, we want the ratio to be proteins higher than your carbohydrate intake, especially the carbohydrates that I love, the cookies, the cakes, those kinds of things. Those, as estrogen production starts to fall, we kind of need to pump the brakes on those specially processed carbohydrates. And this is because we are more insulin resistant. So the more we're pumping out blood sugar from those processed carbohydrates, the more insulin our pancreas has to pump out to get it into the cell. And it's harder and harder. And then we could end up pre-diabetic or diabetes. So carbohydrates that are good for us, I think no brainer, are fruits and vegetables and whole grains. Now, if you work out regularly, that's a bonus because you have more flexibility with your carbs, where exercise helps drive that blood sugar into the cell as fuel after your workout. So it's kind of like, ooh, if I'm going to work out, if I'm going to have one of those maybe carbohydrates that isn't that great for you, maybe I would have it after a workout. A list of some menopause friendly carbohydrates. Again, probably not a big surprise. You don't see muffins on there or cake. These are your fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. We also, in the perimenopause and menopause transition, want to increase our fiber. So most of us get about 15 grams of fiber, which is pretty low. We should be shooting for about 30. The recommendation is 25 to 40. Two types of fiber: soluble fiber, which is dissolved in water, helps with our bad cholesterol, and our cholesterol does go up because we're losing our potent estrogen in the menopause transition. And then insoluble fiber, which helps bulk up the stool and helps get that waste and toxins out of the body. Now, we don't want to go from 15 to 40 or you're going to have stomach distress. So slowly increasing your fiber, drinking lots of water, but working towards getting more protein, more fiber. We can't forget the good old fats. We need both saturated and unsaturated fats. So think of it, we want to increase our protein. Animal protein gives us all of the essential amino acids. So animal-based foods are saturated. So we do need to be mindful. We don't want to have a lot of saturated fats because we don't want it to affect heart health or anything like that. So having a good ratio of saturated to unsaturated fats, and you'll see some fats listed below. Hydration will assist with appetite control, also helps eliminate excess estrogen. And a good rule of thumb is drink a bottle of water when you wake up and then with every meal. That will help with controlling appetite and again, help eliminate toxins from the body. So foods to moderate. Now notice I didn't say eliminate because I believe we have to live life. So it has to be, an 80-20 split. 80% of the time we're pretty good and healthy, and 20% of the time it's okay to have sugars and processed foods and cereals and things like that. There are no bad foods in my opinion. It's just some foods are better than others. So these are some of the foods we want to moderate in menopause because it elicits such a high blood sugar response. And again, if we're insulin resistant or have high inflammation in the body, it is going to be very hard to lose fat until that's kind of under control. So a post-meal walk is very good. It blunts that glucose spike. So after we eat, when there's that rise in blood sugar, when we go out for a walk, that helps lower the blood sugar right away. So plus you get out in nature and you'll find out later that walking helps with stress. So it's like a 2 for 1. And with my clients, I always caution them to be mindful of the calorie gap. It is very scary that all of a sudden you might be gaining weight and you're like, where did this come from? I haven't changed my diet. I haven't done anything. And we don't want to make our calorie gap, we don't want to cut our calories so much that it puts the body into a starvation mode, or like I said, the body's already super stressed out. If we cut a bunch of calories, it's going to not do what we want it to do. It's going to hold on to fat and not let go of fat. So, of course, we don't want more calories than our body needs, but we don't want too little calories. So usually approach I work with my clients is about 200 calories I'll cut, and then I'll look at how are they sleeping, how's their stress, those kinds of things to see if their body can even handle that kind of calorie cut right now. So weight loss resistance, I'm sure you or your clients will say, I've done everything right and nothing's happening. So some areas to look at here are, it isn't just about calories in and calories out. Yes, calories do matter. You have to be in a calorie deficit. However, that's just one part of the story, especially in the menopause transition. You need to look at, are they stressed? What does that look like? How is their sleep? Are they sleeping well? Have they under tracked calories? I had a client the other day who seemed to be doing everything right. We talked about her morning shake, and come to find out she was putting like the kitchen sink in there. Her shake was 700 calories. So remember, those nuts and seeds and peanut butter, all those things are great, but some of those are very high in calories. Just because they're healthy doesn't mean they don't have calories. They might have reduced daily movements. So maybe they go to the gym for an hour, that's great, but then they sit on the couch for the rest of the day. Or they could have a hormone imbalance. There could be thyroid going on. There could be autoimmune issues that might be causing some of this weight loss resistance. So something happening underneath that they could go see a doctor about. Oops, where's my little thing? So that giving you a brief overview of nutrition, and moving into physical activity now, which I know you probably are all interested in. So if physical activity came in a shot like the GLP-1, we would all be in line to get it, because the benefits of physical activity is immense. It reduces rates of all those awful diseases you see listed. It reduces the instance of bone thinning and bone breaking. And then it has additional benefits in menopause, that it reduces the number and severity of some of the bothersome symptoms, hot flashes, improves the mood, enhanced sleep, better cognition, and more energy. So, strength training is the main event. The research is very clear on that. In perimenopause and the rest of your life, you'll lose about half the muscle mass unless you strength train between 35 and 80. Every decade after 30, it decreases 3 to 8%, and the rate accelerates even higher after age 60. That's kind of scary. So, strength training, very important. And it acts like the fountain of youth. So, hey, 2 for 1 again. Strength training, when we lift weights, it can send a signal to the muscles that they need to get stronger. So, this increases metabolic rate, joint strength, and stability, and improves that glucose control, helps with that insulin sensitivity. So, menopause exercise, there's been some debate, right? We've been hearing, at least I've been hearing, lift heavy, lift heavy. Well, what does that even mean? You have to lift heavy for you or for whoever your client is. So, for me, it might be 20-pound overhead press, and for another person, it might only be 10. So when I work with my clients, I want to make sure they move well first. So I would start with a foundational phase before I even give them load, and make sure that they move well, because we don't want to injure them. when we do create the exercise plans, looking at those multi-joint exercises, right? Bigger bang for our buck. We don't have to be at the gym as long. We want to have that 2 reps in reserve. And that just means that after we've done whatever repetition you've prescribed, they could do 2 more reps. They would be difficult, but they could do them with good form. That's what we mean by 2 reps in reserve. So finding that weight where you can get that. And the research has come out that we want to lift in all rep ranges. So, not just heavy for strength, we want to do endurance, hypertrophy, um, because we don't want to end up injured in each one of those different types of exercise. Have their benefits. So, we want to make sure we include it all, not just lifting heavy. Creatine is a supplement. It's the most researched supplement. It's a naturally occurring substance found in your muscle cell. It can help you generate more power. That's great. It can counteract the menopause related decline in muscle, bone, and strength. And in women, it also helps with cognition, with brain health, and the lining of the gut, which also takes a hit in perimenopause. So creatine, really great. The recommendation that's in the research is 3 to 5 grams of creatine monohydrate. It's just a powder that you put in your drink. Takes about 3 weeks for the muscles to become saturated with it. And then you take it every day. So, how do we progress yourselves or your clients? First, we want to look at frequency. Frequency, when we're creating a new habit, it's about how many times we do it so it becomes automatic. Not that we're there for 60 minutes, but that we go 1 time every week or we go twice every single week. So, maybe first, especially if they're new to that, we start by increasing the frequency. So maybe they come twice a week at lower durations. So depending on your client and if they're new to the gym, maybe it's 20 minutes. So once you get that consistent days for 20 minutes, then you can start adding time. And then once that is in a good place, then you can slowly increase intensity. Otherwise, you get people freaking out because you're like, okay, come to the gym for 60 minutes and we're going to do all this high intensity work and heavy lift. And there might be a chance you might not see them back again. So we also want to do multi-mode and cross training. So we can use the machines, we can use the barbells, dumbbells, kettlebells, all of that to minimize the risk of overuse injuries. If there's a number one thing in the perimenopause transition that women should do, it's walking. Now, not the uppercut walking, not the power walking. This is leisure walking. You could talk to your friend the whole time at a nice, slow pace. This keeps the body insulin sensitive. It doesn't trigger hunger and cravings. It helps with stress management. So it brings that cortisol level down, and just gives you those feel good hormones. Pretty much everybody can, is pretty open to walking. Working towards 10,000 steps a day. Again, if they're at 5,000, you're just maybe working to 5,500. So slowly increasing that, trying to get to 50 to 70,000 steps per week. Zone 2 cardio, that's been a little bit debated lately as well. So, zone 2 cardio is valuable for everyone. It has great metabolic benefits for the heart, for all the other organs. So, both zone 2, I shouldn't say both, all three, zone 2 hit high intensity interval training and sprint interval training have shown improvements in mitochondrial health. And that's important because your mitochondria is where you burn fat. So we want healthy mitochondria. So, but all three of those have been shown to give improvement. So, for me, what I've seen, an 80-20 split works. 80% zone 2, 20% your high intensity or your sprint interval training. And we'll talk about what is zone 2 here in a moment. But first, we'll talk about our HIIT training, our high intensity training. This is 80% or more of your max heart rate. This is where you would create the intervals and the rest ratio. So, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, however you want to create it. It helps train the mitochondria and can help with resilience. So when we train our body to go at that intense speed for so many seconds and then back off, we're training our body to be more stress resilient in real life, right? So we put some higher demands on it and then we rest and then we can come back stronger. So starting with one day and working up to 3 non-consecutive days is a good recommendation. So then we have our sprint interval training. So this is 30 seconds or less of high intensity exercise, followed by rest for as long as you need to. So you can hit that 30 seconds with the same intensity. So that might be 2 minutes, 3 minutes. This, I'm not going to lie, does not feel good. I mean, the HIIT training doesn't feel good either, but the sprint interval training really doesn't feel good. If you'll know when you're doing it correctly. This is 90 to 95% or more of your max heart rate. Now, you don't need very long amounts of time during HIIT or sit, but it is very intense. Helps train the mitochondria. Again, start with one day, working up to 3 non-consecutive. And I found for myself or for my clients, I just pick one or the other. Are we doing HIIT or are we doing sit? And always good if a client's new to training like this, starting with a high intensity interval training before you go into sprint interval training, because again, we don't want them to be injured. So how do we determine the max heart rate? Well, you're going to get this PowerPoint presentation after this talk. So you'll have this information. These are the 3 formulas that I found to determine max heart rate. Another way of doing is that if you had a VO2 max test done, you would know your max heart rate, but this will give you a pretty good ballpark. Currently, there's no calendar that's gender adjusted, unfortunately. So this is both male and female. And then if you wanted to define your zone 2 heart rate, well, if you knew your max heart rate, you could use 75% of that. Or there is an equation of 180 minus your age will give you the upper limit for zone 2, subtract 10 beats from that for the lower limit of zone 2. So caveat here, I use my age. So I am 53. So I took 180 minus 53. Hopefully I did my math okay. And so my zone 2 upper limit's about 127 and 117 would be my lower limit, just to give you guys an idea. We also need plyometrics, especially as we move towards post-menopause, right? Because we have bone thinning, we could have possible osteoporosis, osteopenia. So we need that multi-directional stress on the bone. We don't just want walking or running because we're only working in one plane. We want that multi-directional. So plyometrics improves your insulin sensitivity, helps train your power output, and it doesn't have to be its own workout. It can be added in the last 5 or 10 minutes of a workout. And just some examples here below. I'm sure you have some of your own you would add in there too. Stability. So stability definition is the ability of a joint to remain secure while other body parts are moving. This allows you to control the movement. So we do want to add some stability exercises in there. Again, it can be part of the warm up or it can be part of the cool down. And here are just some examples below. All the things that we need. And then mobility. So the ability of a joint to move through its full range of motion. Good mobility makes you more stable and increases your range of motion. And you may have clients or yourself as you're moving through perimenopause, just because our estrogen levels are fluctuating, that they might start to have joint pain, frozen shoulder, or they wake up and they're like, oh my gosh, do I have arthritis? So doing some nice mobility exercises and some samples there below for you are always good. more so than anything, we talked about HIIT and sit and strength and all of that, is that we want rest and recovery workouts because I mentioned earlier the body is very stressed out without its hormones, without its potent estrogen, without progesterone. And so we want to do things that will take stress off the system. This tends to be a time in women's lives where maybe we're working full-time jobs, we have older parents, we have kids that are young adults and still need us. So we need to take that time, that self-care. And here are just some examples of rest and recovery workouts. In a perfect world, we would do 3 or more of these a week. And what's great about them is when you do something that you love as a rest and recovery workout, you increase the hormone oxytocin. And those of you that have had babies and you hold that baby in your arm and there's just pure love, that's oxytocin being pumped out. And oxytocin helps bring down cortisol. So cortisol tends to climb up in perimenopause. The more oxytocin you can have, the more it would balance that. So to kind of sum it all up, in perimenopause, training consideration, strength training is a priority. It's not debated, quite honestly. 2 sessions to keep the muscle that we have and maintain it, 3 or more if we're looking to build. And we want flexible programming if you're a personal trainer, because maybe remember I mentioned you can have those cycles where there's no progesterone because we didn't ovulate. When we don't have progesterone, we might be tired, moody, not sleeping well. So we want to be in tune with that and then program for our clients accordingly. So that we honor how they're feeling and not further stress them out. Cardiovascular exercise, walking in zone 2 for metabolic health, HIIT in moderation, helpful for the metabolism. However, if your client or you is so stressed out, stay away from the HIIT and go for a walk, because HIIT's going to increase cortisol, which that's fine. That's what it's supposed to do. But if you are already in high cortisol, if you're already stressed out, you're doing yourself a disservice, and you'd be better off going for a walk or going back to bed, right? Getting that recovery strategies. And then some mobility, restorative movement, things like that to increase that oxytocin and help with stress. Moving into postmenopause, again, strength training, it's non-negotiable. It's the foundation. If possible, 3 to 4 days a week in a perfect world. Power and plyometrics, if you can fit it in, for bone density and fall prevention. Zone 2 cardio, your HIIT, which improves your VO2 max, which is like great indicator for your longevity, and your mobility and balance work. Just made a little pyramid for you. So at the base of the pyramid is what I feel and what I've seen with my clients has the most benefit at the bottom. So this is your daily movement. This is your NEAT, or your non-exercise thermogenesis, I believe it is. This is also your walking. That's all at the bottom. That's at the base. Then we have strength training, then zone 2 cardio for our metabolic health, then our HIIT or sit, and finally at the top of the pyramid, our power. We need them all, but some more than others. So coming down to the exercise prescription, more is not necessarily better. So if you're completely stressed out, can't sleep, moody, go for a walk. It's not, oh, let me just drag myself to the gym because I'm trying to get off this belly fat. It's actually going to work against you. So if possible, 2 to 3 days of strength training, non-consecutive, unless you're not working the same body parts, stability and mobility, plyometrics, and then your cardio zone 2, sit or HIIT. Phew, that's a lot. So moving into sleep, which I think is probably the most important thing. If you don't get a good night's sleep, you don't really feel like doing any of the prior things that we talked about. So menopause sleep, the first hormone that drops in perimenopause is progesterone. And I mentioned progesterone's like the calming, hormone helps you sleep. So when we start to lose it, we have increased anxiety, we have a racing mind. You may find yourself or your clients, your friends being, I don't know who I am anymore. I'm just like have this increased anxiety out of nowhere. That's, due somewhat to the loss of progesterone. And we want to have good deep sleep. Deep sleep is where we get pulses of human growth hormone. We get human growth hormone when we do high intensity exercise and also in the first half of the night. So getting to bed between like 10 and midnight is great because we can capitalize on that deep sleep where the body restores itself and hopefully we feel amazing when we wake up. I'm not going to go over all of these with you for sake of time, but just to highlight what I think is probably the most important sleep strategy is the consistent sleep schedule. And most importantly, keeping that same time in the morning when you wake up. So when you wake up, trying even on the weekends, trying to keep that same time within about 30 minutes to an hour, because that will set your circadian rhythm and that will help you feel naturally tired about 15, 16 hours later. And then you can look at these other ones at your leisure. Sleep strategies for anxiety. Again, I'm not going to go into all of them here. These are just some that we talk about in the full training that I do. Moving into stress management, like I said, stress, again, we're the most stressed out we've ever been. Whereas when we were in our reproductive years, we could handle a 9 out of 10 out of stress, like no problem. Now we're like at a 4 out of 10. So we can't handle very much stress. So we don't want additional stress added. And remember that it's not just bad stress, it's good stress too. Maybe you have your kid coming home to visit, a wedding, you are moving. These are all good things, but still a stress to the system. Also, if you're dealing with inflammation or autoimmune disease, right, that's an internal stress to the system. And our menopause metabolism, very stress reactive. So reducing stress with the things listed below here. Cortisol gets a bad rap. It's actually good when it's working correctly, but most of us have elevated cortisol. It's our main stress hormone. In perimenopause, when we have too much cortisol, we have in our deep belly fat 4 times the receptors for cortisol. So you pump out cortisol because your body thinks you need to run from a bear. And guess what? You're just sitting in front of your computer because you have a deadline or something, and all that blood sugar you mobilize to fight the bear or run gets stored probably back in the belly fat because you didn't use it. And then you're going to get hunger and cravings for carbohydrates because now your blood sugar is low, and it just becomes this constant hamster wheel. So we want to manage our stress. One way to do it, I just have this cute way of calling it the menopause breath. So, this is your diaphragmatic breathing where the exhale is longer than the inhale, because when the exhale is longer, we activate that rest and digest system. So, breathing in for a count of 4, breathing out 5 times. And I use the word pause just to give the brain something to remember. So, this might be something that you try, only need to do it for a couple of minutes. Maybe even 5 breaths, and you will probably notice a difference. You'll feel a little bit more grounded and calm. Another thing that is super important, and this is why I think it's great that you're all on this webinar and those that watch the recording, is that we need connection. We are wired that way. And in perimenopause, I'll talk to hundreds of women and they all think they're alone. They're not alone, right? We are all having some sort of experience. Maybe we're not having all the symptoms, but we're having some of the symptoms. And it's great to have someone to connect with. It helps increase oxytocin. And it just helps us feel like, hey, I'm not the only one going through this. So we want to get that tribe to help us and have somebody to talk to, having somebody who understands, a coach, a trainer, super important during this transition. So, what brings you joy? And if you'd like to put it in the chat, I would love to see it because we're almost done the PowerPoint. but adding things that bring you joy. This is a transition. It will not last forever. And the good thing is that the research shows that after the age of 60, that decade, we're the happiest, which is crazy. And don't ask me how they measure it. But what happens as you go through this transition, you realize what you no longer want. You start to create boundaries. You start to know what you like. You're not worried about your kids. You're not worried about taking care of everybody else. It's finally about you. And so, thinking about what does bring you joy and bringing that into your life, because I think of perimenopause like the halftime show. It's like, okay, we are at halftime. What do I want to take into the second half of my life? And what do I want to let go of? So it's actually, if you look at it, it's a beautiful renewal rather than this awful thing with a bunch of symptoms. The symptoms can be managed, but thinking that we can go into the next phase of our life, bringing in just what brings you joy. And so, if you wanted an acronym, the menopause meds prescription, the M stands for mindfulness. So, just paying attention to what's happening right now. And the key to this is without judgment. Mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment without judgment. The E stands for exercise. What kind of physical activity are you doing? Do something that you love or you won't continue doing it. Hopefully, it includes some kind of strength training. D stands for diet. So, starting to increase your protein and get those healthy whole foods in. And the S stands for sleep, stress, self care, and support. So, optimizing all of those things. I seem to love triangles here. So the metabolic hierarchy in my mind, and when I work with my clients who have the most success, this is usually how it works. Working towards managing stress and your mindset so that you're not pumping out cortisol all the time. So you're not high anxiety and those kinds of things. So managing stress. Next up the triangle is sleep. So working on getting good sleep habits, followed by your nutrition, optimizing that, then movement, the walking, the strength training, finally, your supplements, your creatine, your collagen, your all the other things that are out there. So that is just a very brief overview of what we cover in the menopause specialty certificate. We go into a deep dive of all of that, plus the hormones, hormone replacement therapy. We talk about coaching strategies. We have a actual workout. We do some menopause yoga. So if that's something that piques your interest, you can receive a $50 discount since you joined live. The next virtual workshop with me is on May 2nd. I would love to see you guys there. This is just literally a skimming of the surface. And you'll see the code there with the Flash 2026. And those who hold a valid NETA credential can receive continuing education credits for attending today's webinar. Please reach out to Darcy at netafit.org to claim that. So, shoo. And then you'll also, last but not least, you'll get the PowerPoint information. This is my email. This is my website. Please contact me with any questions. I would love to hear from you. And I hope this information was valuable. Those are just some references for you. And I'll stop the share there. Shoo, that was a lot.
Hello. Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was awesome. We have a lot of really great feedback in the chat. So many people saying thank you, good stuff. I love the comment from Raya. Prioritizing self at the age of 60, unless I heard it wrong, is exactly why I think we need to help women learn how to prioritize themselves when they're younger.
Yes, yes.
Awesome. Someone said that was awesome. We can move into the question and answer portion. So we did have some questions. So um, One from Chrissy. What approach do you take with setting protein goals with women who are on GLP-1 who are just beginning to strength train?
Yes, the GLP-1, which is a large number of our population. For those people, I try to prioritize the protein so, their appetite is diminished. So getting the protein in first. It's like, okay, can we eat the protein first before our carbohydrates? So getting a little bit, right? Or we're just trying to move the needle a little bit so that because they're losing weight so quickly and we want to maintain their muscle mass.
Awesome. We had a comment. Someone was asking if there were more plant protein example recommendations.
Yes, I did not put them here, but in the full menopause class, I think there's like two slides on different types of plant protein. Of course, I can't think of them off the top of my head. Um, but yes, like your legumes, your beans, your soy, yes, that kind of stuff. You can email me and I'll send you a list. I have it.
Awesome. Question from Michelle. Is it helpful to freeze simple carbs, breads, potatoes, rice to make them more insulin resistant? Pull out as needed?
Yeah, so there is resistant starches, so like cooling potatoes and rice. So yes, so they could be a little so you don't get the same blood sugar response. Yes. Um, that's like if you're doing everything right and you're looking to make tweaks, absolutely that can help. Sure. Mhm.
Awesome. Question from Michelle. What, if any, are the side effects to creatine consumption? Any adverse indications for certain populations?
That's a great question. I'll start with the first part of it. The only thing that I have heard for adverse reactions is some people will feel bloated from it. So, in the research that I've done, the typical creatine that we get, it goes through a washing system when it's processed, and it goes through like an acid washing system. And so some people are very sensitive to that. So there's a product called Crea Pure from Germany, I believe, that goes when they process it, it goes through a water wash rather than an acid wash, and people don't get the same bloating from that. I would have to do research to know if there's anybody that should not take creatine. That I don't know.
Awesome. Yeah, Sheila commented, I can't take creatine due to kidney issues.
Okay. That's all right.
Awesome.
It's one of those supplements. It's at the top of the pyramid. If you can, you can. Can't, you can't.
Question from Ramaya. How do we approach women that are afraid of lifting heavy? Some of my clients won't go beyond the 2 and 4 pounds.
I know. What I find, I don't know if you're a personal trainer or group fitness instructor, but women, they typically like classes. At least I know I do. So I will do group personal training with other women, and then they tend to, because they're together, they're not as fearful. So I can kind of do it that way. But I have an honest conversation that if we don't overload the muscle, it can't grow. So, trust me here. Maybe they're going from 4 to 5 pounds. Try that for a couple of weeks and then slowly add there. Um, yeah, you have to do it slowly. Meet them where they are and then slowly progress them.
Awesome. Question from Jennifer. Do you have recommendations for assessing quality of collagen supplements?
I do not, quite honestly. I have, believe it or not, I have collagen powder sitting on my counter and I never remember to take it. So no, I do not, I do not have recommendations on that one.
Question from Saeed. I teach belly dance. Have you researched that discipline? And would that qualify as rest and recovery workout? Something else? Thanks.
Love that. Yes, I took belly dancing lessons a long time ago. Yes, it's fun. It's going to increase oxytocin because you're probably having a blast. And yes, it does qualify for rest and recovery. Yeah, that's a great one. Again, find what you love, what your clients love, and go for that. Yes.
Awesome. I think that that is it for questions, unless anyone has some last minute things that they want to drop in the chat or the Q&A. We did have a recommendation. Besha is a great German collagen in medical journals.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. Might be something to check out.
I know. Well, I figure like strength training is the fountain of youth, and I don't have a ton of extra money to spend on supplements, so I'm like, okay. But yes, that's a great one. I will definitely check it out.
Awesome. Well, perfect. Well, if we don't have any more questions, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you again so much, Jennifer, for being here with us today. Don't forget to take advantage of that discount. And also, a reminder that the webinar recording will be sent out to everyone. So be checking your emails. And also, Jennifer's contact information will be included. So if any questions do pop up, feel free to connect with her directly.
Thank you, Shannon. Yes, please, any questions or anything that I didn't cover that you would like information on? Oh, tap dance too. Yeah, all you dancers, love it. Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone so much for tuning in, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Thank you again, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.